This is the presentation about project manager. First, we are going to talk about new project manager essentials and what are we going to learn. First, how to understand your new responsibilities. That can be hard to know how to begin. The characteristics that define a project and what the environment and the scope of a project are, what your responsibilities are, what you need to understand before planning starts, identify the different types of people in the project, the stakeholders, and where to go to access useful information. Then, what makes a project? Employers in a company. In a company, it's necessary to spend more time and resources to improve employee onboarding. The new employers need to know the company goals and workflows. They also need how their respective works align with the company's key initiatives. Characteristics of a project. A project has a specific outcome, creating an addition to the employer's orientation program to focus more on company goals. A project should create something that didn't exist before. A project must meet a business need. The business need is the foundation and justification of the project. The business need is also the characteristic that must drive the project. Where projects come from? Start a project. New projects are launched on a whim. The business reasons for starting a project need to be very clear. Before you hand a project to lead, its valuable and utility have been assessed and justified. The financial reasons. Business reasons for undertaking a project are generally tangible. Financial considerations are often the reasons for undertaking projects in business. The, the economic factors can include increased revenues, improved project profit margins, cost savings, tax considerations, and market volatility. Financial gain. In a project, despite the initial cost, if the financial gain that will be realized from the process change is clear, the project gets approved. Where projects come from? Another tangible reason for undertaking a project is to create a new asset. This is even clearer if the asset you are creating has value in and of itself. Customer demand is another business reason for undertaking a project. Identifying customer needs, even as they are changing, can be the difference between the success and failure of a project. For example, smartphones get bigger, smaller, faster, and smarter. Each new feature is an attempt to keep pace with customer needs. Intangible business reasons, improving employee morale, better brand recognition, and creates customer goodwill. These are the three intangible business reasons. For example, if your company were to sponsor an event in the local community, this creates community goodwill and publicity. It enhances your company's reputation and possibly creates further customer demand. Now, the project manager responsibilities. A project manager is responsible for all the project's moving parts and keeping them connected. Having the key responsibilities involved in leading a project will help all the interrelated parts working together in harmony. The scope. Defining the scope of the project is one of these key responsibilities. The scope is what a project should specifically include and what it shouldn't include. Defining the scope helps get your team working on the same page. Budget. It is a detailed plan of how money will be spent and should include a reserve fund to cover the unexpected events that often sidetrack your project. The schedule. The schedule helps keep things on track. includes the start date, dates for key milestones, and the end date of the project. These three, the scope, budget, and schedule, are interrelated with all of them are necessary. Project manager responsibilities, we have another three. As a project leader, you must also ensure that quality standards are being met. Quality. Quality checks are needed to make sure that all the features are there and in good working order as agreed. The resource. You will also handle the project resource, managing the people, material, and equipment. And the last one is risks. The risks are the potential events that might negatively affect your project. Part of your plan should include budget and time contingencies to take risk into account. These six areas represent the moving parts that you must coordinate. It is also the case that any one or all these areas can be constraints on your project. A constraint is something that is a limiting factor. Coordinating multiple areas under tight constraints is a big challenge. Example, in the middle of the project, you are told the completion day must move forward. You will need to save time. So, as project manager, it's up to you to work with the team and the stakeholders to identify and choose the best option to keep the project's wheel spinning. Learning from the past. You have you have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of people looking to you for guidance, and a lot of weight on your shoulders. But you're not alone. You have your project team members. They have experience and expertise. Although you're the project manager, it doesn't mean you are an expert in every phase of the project. Grizzled veterans. Virtually any organization has its grizzled veterans. Their experience colleges, many of whom have been where you are now. They have led projects, made mistakes, and overcome them. You can learn from their mistakes and benefit from their successes. Your company management in general and your director supervisor in particular are invaluable sources of information. Maybe you are trouble with a talented team member who isn't collaborating well with others. How do you get him to work more effectively on the team? You should ask college for advice. Someone in your company has already overcome the challenge you now face. Most organizations also boost in-house experts, even if they are not available to join your team directly. These colleges can be consulted or borrowed short-term to lend their expertise to your team. Perhaps your project requires specialist knowledge or resource. If you must turn to external vendors, you'll want to work with your purchasing department, knowing that there are already sources of experience and knowledge standing beside you into a project manager role a little less daunting and gives your projects the best chance to success. Project stakeholders. What is a stakeholder? You need to know who's invested in your project. Anyone who can affect or is affected by your project is a stakeholder. These are the people who can persuade, coerce, or motivate people to bring about change. The stakeholders are also the people who can obstruct or slow down your project success if they are not on board. The stakeholder management and communication is essential to your project success. How to identify the stakeholders? You should think about who's interested or invest in your project. The sponsors. Sponsors are among the most critical stakeholders because these are the individuals who fund the project. They're closely involved in the project's performance and will require regular status updates. Customers, they may be stakeholders, and they can be external buyers of your products and service. It is important to keep in mind that customer satisfaction may be directly related to how they were consulted and engaged throughout the project. End user. Anyone who directly uses the project's product or service is an end user. Although end users are highly interested in the project's outcome, they are not involved directly in the decision making. The business partners. They are sole key stakeholders. They share risks and opportunities. If they lose focus or pull out, it could set a project back by days or even weeks. Competitors. They are a set of stakeholders that are unlikely to influence your project directly. However, they might monitor your project. A recommendation is to keep an eye on the activity of competitors. Project team members. They perform the project work, so they are key internal stakeholders. They have the potential to greatly affect a project's progress and outcome. Stakeholder management. It is critical at every stage, but especially as you begin. Key persons at any level can affect the project's progress and outcome dramatically. If you don't consider everyone's expectations right at the start, it will cost you your time and money. And we have the most relevant points. The objective of a project is to create something that didn't exist before and almost always must meet a business need. When you start a project, the business reason needs to be very clear. In a project, you should consider economic factors like increased revenues, improved profit margins, tax considerations, and market volatility. One of the reasons for undertaking a project is the customer demand. It is so important to identify customer needs. The main intangible business reason in a project are improving employee morale, better brand recognition, and create a customer goodwill. The project manager is the most important person in a project because he is responsible for all of the project's moving parts. The main responsibilities for a project manager is to define the scope, make a budget, define a schedule, ensure quality, manage the resource, and evaluate risk. A project may also have constraints which are a limiting factor. As a project manager, you have a project team members who can help you with their experience and expertise. Virtually any organization has its grizzled veterans from which you can learn from their mistakes and benefit from their success. If a project requires specialist knowledge or resource, you must turn to external vendors. You'll want to work with purchasing department. A stakeholder is anyone who can affect or is affected by your project. These stakeholders are also the people who can obstruct or slow down your project success if they are not on board. The main stakeholders are the sponsor, the customers, end users, business partners, competitors, and the project team members. Finally, in a project, it's very important to consider everyone's expectations right at the start if you don't want to lose time and money. And this is the finish of the presentation.